Beryl is on final approach to the Texas coast. Good Sunday evening, I'm Mike Naso with the latest tropical update on Tropical Storm Beryl. As of 11 p.m. Sunday night, Eastern Time that is, 10 p.m. Central, Beryl is still a tropical storm, but it is closing in quickly on hurricane intensity, and it looks like it will become a hurricane before making landfall sometime early Monday morning along the mid-Texas coastline. There's the infrared satellite imagery, and notice this deep convection starting to wrap around the center, so even though it's still dealing with some drier air, it looks like it will be able to become a hurricane, and maybe be strengthening at a more quick rate as it's making landfall, which could exacerbate the situation with the winds. Here's the latest as of 10 p.m. Central Time on Tropical Storm Beryl. It was at 27.6 north, 95.6 west, winds of 70 miles per hour, and that pressure's in the 980s, so it's poised to become a hurricane. It is moving north-northwest at 10, although we've seen some wobbles to the north and even the north-northeast, just east of north. However, that should be short term as it will make landfall and then eventually be swept on out ahead of a trough in the middle of the country. And it could bring some wet weather to areas there of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, especially as it interacts with a cold front sometime midweek. But again, right now the focus is along the Texas coastline. We have a hurricane warning from Mesquite Bay, Texas, all the way up to Port Bolivar. And again, this is going to be within that area, Matagorda Bay and Port O'Connor, all of those areas, Freeport. You guys are directly in the path of what will be a landfalling hurricane. Here's another look at that infrared satellite, and again, right in here is the center of the tropical storm, and the convection building, all it needs is one little push to push it back to a Category 1 hurricane, and once that happens, it will then tighten up more as it comes ashore, probably somewhere in this region here to the west of Galveston, but you don't want it to get too close because you don't want heavy wind in downtown Houston. Speaking of Houston, here's the radar out of Houston, Galveston, and again, right in here is the center, and it's still dealing with this dry air kind of taking a bite out of its southern and southwestern portion of the circulation, but as this tightens up, it will become a hurricane. Now, the motion was pretty much north-northwest. That's still what we're saying, but it did appear to bend a little bit to the north and northeast, according to the recon aircraft, so we don't want it to do that too much because then it would increase the threat to Galveston, Houston, and that area up there. We think it will, and the National Hurricane Center thinks it will continue to the north-northwest, somewhere like that, and come ashore somewhere near Matagorda Island, Freeport area, Sargent, Texas, areas in that region will be most at risk. I'll show you that on the map in just a minute. But again, some heavy weather moving through already in Freeport and along the Texas coast. They've had squally weather all day out ahead of the tropical storm, and that's only going to get worse as the winds get closer and closer, and you'll eventually have hurricane force winds closer to that center of circulation. Storm surge is going to be a problem, especially near and to the right of where the center of the storm makes landfall. Port O'Connor, Texas to St. Louis Pass, you guys could have 4 to 7 feet, and that includes crashing waves on top of that. Also included in that is Matagorda Bay. So again, Matagorda Bay, you guys are right in the path of some heavy storm surge. Galveston Bay, 4 to 6 feet, and 3 to 5 from High Island to Sabine Pass. So again, a very nasty Monday morning with water rises all along the upper Texas coast, even into areas of western Louisiana there. 1 to 3 feet of storm surge possible with some waves on top of that. Anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico, by the way, you could have surf and rip currents, so you got to be very, very careful. Now, here's the map of the Texas coast. That little logo there, that little tag is where the center of the storm is as of 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. And if it continues its current motion, it would make landfall very near Matagorda Bay, Matagorda, that region. If it moves a little bit more to the north, Sargent, Texas, that region, and if it does bend a little more east, it would be the Freeport area. So again, that's probably where we'll likely see landfall, somewhere in that location. And if I zoom in here, where exactly landfall would occur, Matagorda Bay, Matagorda Island. Now, the good news is there are some more rural areas, so it's not like there's big major cities right on the coast. You got like the Big Boggy National Wildlife Refuge. You know, if Beryl messes with Big Boggy, it could cause some problems, but not if it hits a major metropolitan city. That would come as the center of the storm pulls inland if it doesn't weaken, and you have all these communities, Brazoria, Surfside Beach, Freeport, all the way up more towards the greater Houston area. And so that's why we're watching it very, very carefully. We don't want it to bend too much to the right, because if it bends too much to the right, then some of those winds could get into a more populated area. Nevertheless, Matagorda, Sargent, Freeport, Lake Jackson, Bay City, even Port O'Connor, you guys are in for a rough Monday from this tropical storm, soon to be hurricane. This has been a very long track system. It's been about 10 days or so. It was June 28th. It was Friday that it developed, Friday, June 28th, and it quickly became a hurricane and then a Category 4 hurricane, and it really devastated areas there in the Grenadines, south of St. Vincent. Grenada took a major hit in the Windward Islands, one of the strongest hurricanes they've seen, let alone for the start of July. And then it became only the second Category 5 on record in the Atlantic during the month of July after Hurricane Emily in July 2005. It took a track very near Jamaica as a high-end Category 4 hurricane, and it really ravaged the southern communities there on the southern part of the island. And then it slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula as a potent Category 1-2 hurricane. Really got torn apart, sheared, and now it's taken its final approach now to Texas. And it looks like it'll become a hurricane again, probably a strengthening Category 1, and then make landfall on the mid to upper Texas coast. It's funny, for a long time, and I know I wasn't alone here, didn't think this thing would make it this far north. It seemed like it would probably take a track like that. That curve to the north is definitely scary for the Gulf Coast, because this was only the second storm out of 3 that we've had, and I think the official forecast calls for 23. So we've got about, 20 more names to go through? How many more hurricanes? How many more major hurricanes? How many more Category 4 hurricanes? It's very scary to think what the 2024 hurricane season may have in store. Nevertheless, what a hurricane. A long-tracked, what we call a Caribbean cruiser. And that's certainly one that we're going to remember. I don't think there'll be another Beryl after this, regardless of the impacts in Texas. I'm assuming that next year the name will be retired. So again, I'm Mike Naso with the latest on Tropical Storm Beryl. It should become a hurricane within short order here, and we'll watch it as it closes in on the Texas coastline. Again, it's cranking up. It should become a hurricane and make landfall along the area there close to Matagorda Bay and Freeport sometime early Monday morning. I'll be back with more coverage as Beryl closes in on Texas.